composing music, even if it's really, really simple, the stuff that I write that's very simple, I want it to be memorable. And I like the idea of catchiness and the idea that the melodic shapes actually stick in your head a little bit, because what we're going to be doing when we're improvising might be completely off the wall. So I like that dynamic, and sitting there and trying to write an 8-bar melody that's extremely memorable is hard. And sometimes inspiration strikes, but mostly not. Mostly, like I was telling Nick just yesterday, I need to go to this, I think there's a Beethoven house in Bonn, where there's some of the paper that he was working on, and I think it's the second movement from the Fifth Symphony, which has this really beautiful legato theme that comes back, orchestrated, that he tried 200 versions or something like this, and you can see the pencil going through the paper. He was so angry, trying to get the melody just right, but it can be like that, just you're sculpting something, you're whittling away at it until it feels right, and when it does feel right, it's extremely satisfying. To have a melody where the person working at the bar is humming it when you leave the gig is extremely satisfying, especially in a kind of music like this that people generally don't conceive of as being so catchy or whatever. So that's an interesting area of composition that's kind of becoming more important for me, I think that there's a maybe over-reliance on notation, or maybe there's many ways to understand notation and like Western notation and what it is. And I mean, there's people that will make this argument that it's like this tool of colonialism and all this stuff. It's like, okay, you can look at it like that, but it's just any salsa trumpet player knows how to read a chart. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a way to get the stuff on the paper so you don't have to remember it. So I grew up, doing classical music, and I got pretty proficient at reading music. It was a normal. And then I went into the, contemporary music world as a trumpet player. So just doing gigs in New York of, okay, we're going to do I've done Fernie-Howe, or like Ligeti or Xenakis. I've played all that stuff. And in that world, and I love all that music, especially, those guys are great. In that world, there's such a emphasis on notation, especially because I think it must have to do with a combination of like academia and a sort of like ladder climbing aspect to that career, where you have to kind of, like in school when you do math problems, you have to show your work. There's this thing of like, look what I've done, and it has to look great, it has to look complicated. And having played a lot of that music, it doesn't necessarily translate into musical complexity. It doesn't sound complicated. There are two things that are not really related. I've played pieces where it could be notated in a much, much more simple way, but instead it's notated in an extremely complicated way because it looks cool, it looks complicated, and it makes the composer look smart, honestly. That's part of it. I think it's just about having a nice connection with the people in the room, and I think being adaptable is the most important thing. And knowing, these university gigs that I do, I'll show up, it'll be like a Tuesday, and it's 2:00 in the afternoon in some very sterile concert, a rehearsal space, and there's a responsibility for me to just be able to. Usually, what I do is I play for the kids. That's the first thing that I do, just play some music, and I actually play for them the way that I would play, at the BIM house or something like that. And I don't think really twice about it because I've been doing it a long time, but I think that's kind of a requirement for a musician, just to be able to make music happen no matter where you are. For me, playing in a small club for 150 people is the most fun thing, but you can't really make money doing that. So then it creates this kind of conflict of like, you're trying to find these bigger spaces to present the music in, and obviously people want to play the biggest gigs possible, but musically it's not always the best environment, So it creates some tension, I think. I think that for me personally, the best show that I'm going to give is if I'm focused on the music. And if I'm listening to the band, and if I'm focused and just trying to act natural and just play naturally and not overthink things or over micromanage, that usually makes the music better. and then people can smell fear, and they can smell inauthenticity, I think. So, I mean, even for me, like doing solo gigs is it's a very stark example. Like I can feel when when I'm losing people's attention, I can feel them drift away from me. And so then it's a matter of, well, okay, do I try to get them on board? What do I do then, And that's not a great feeling. I can also feel it when I have them with me. And that's an incredible feeling, because you feel like you blend in with the audience, actually. And it just becomes this thing of like, I'm just keeping this thing going, and we're all kind of in it together, and all I need to do is just keep playing. I don't have to worry about anything. And I think with a band, it's more helpful because we're generating that together. And if an audience can tell that the band is just functioning as a unit and listening and playing together, the rest of it usually takes care of itself. I don't think you don't need to really worry about like what people are thinking or anything. Or hopefully it should be engaging enough that people want to pay attention to it.